Hello guys, here's Shrimp Farm and here's another, I hope, interesting movie. This time I've made decision to start planting Bucephalandras in my tank, so I started to look for those plants in different sources, and this is how I came across Cristopher, who's got a quite impressive collection of Bucephalandras. He's got about 100 or more species of these plants, and I decided to visit him to see this magnificent beauty. His main tank, where the most of his plants are Bucephalandras. He keeps some fishes and he keeps shrimps, Taiwan bee shrimps, in this main disposal tank. Thanks to his knowledge and his kindness, he told me some things about Bucephalandras, how to keep them, how to grow them, should we use any supplementations, and I decided to share the knowledge from Cristopher with you. At the beginning, let's talk something about the tank. It's quite a big opti-white tank. I think the glass is 10 millimeters or 12 millimeters thick, and the filtration is done by a sump. So it's the same or very similar method that is used with most of the professional reef tanks. Unfortunately, I didn't movie the sump. Let's be honest, I even don't know why, because it would be quite interesting. But he told me a lot about his upkeep of the tank. So first of all, usually he doesn't use any supplementation or fertilizers for the Bucephalandras. But in his main tank, he used some of the supplementation, micro and macro, and it's because he got also not only slow growing Bucephalandras and mosses, but also some fast growing plants. And those plants start to compete with Bucephalandras and drain the water from the micro and macro elements. But in his smaller tanks, where he got a lot of Bucephalandras, he doesn't use any of the supplementations. His main upkeep is weekly water changes. He changes about 20% of the water. He uses active substrate developed for the shrimps and plants. In smaller tanks, I think this is active substrate for the shrimps. In the main tank, I hope that I remember well, he used the active substrate for the plants. Of course, Bucephalandras needs a little bit of acidity in the tank, so they are very good to keep with the shrimps. He also says that the most important thing is the quality of the water and the clarity of the water. And this is why he makes weekly water changes, and this is why he uses bacteria to keep the water parameters and the clearness of the water on the right level. The very important thing about Bucephalandras is that their natural habitat is quite unusual with the way we keep those plants in our tanks, because they develop in one part of the year under the water, and in the another part of the year they grow above the water. It's quite important because if you want to buy those plants which are bred in Indonesia, you can come across with a little bit of problem when adapting plants for the tank, because in Indonesia they usually grow those plants above the water. I'm not sure what is the reason. Is it because it's easier for them to grow, or is it connected with the fact that they might grow faster above the water? I'm not sure, but this has quite major consequences when you put those plants into the tank, because when they are under the water, they will lose all of their leaves in some period of time, and this period of time can take even about a year or more. And this is because they need to adapt to the underwater conditions. After they lose those leaves, they will grow with no problem under the water, but this fact can make the process of growing of the plant slower, because after adapting you will get the real growth of the plant. And this is quite interesting feature which may force us to make a decision. Should we buy those plants from the import, from the Indonesia or the resellers, or should we look for the keepers that already have adapted their plants to underwater conditions and that are trying to share with their plants with another part of the society of shrimp keepers and aquarium keepers, let's say like that. I think it can be easier and more satisfying if we look for someone that has already kept those plants in our country, because we will see the effects of keeping the plant, we will see the growth much faster, and we won't consider the problem that our plant is losing leaves, especially that this process can take even above a year. I also know that it can be a little bit of problems with Bucephalandras because they are quite expensive and we pay quite a lot of money for not as big plant as we want, and the import plants can be cheaper. But we have to consider these problems that I say before making the decision. I also came across with opinion or another problem that Bucephalandras can drain water from micro and macro elements that are beneficial or even very important for the shrimps that we keep. I must say I have never tested this problem, but I will try to do in the future, because one of my friends that is also keeping shrimps told me that he has a big problem with molting, and that happened after putting a lot of Bucephalandras in his tank, and that he had to start dosing micro and macro elements dedicated for the shrimp to help with this problem. I'm not sure is it really the problem of the plants because they are slow growers, or is it another problem in his tank? We are trying to figure it out, but it will have to take some time. For example, Cristopher plants are kept in the smaller tanks that you will see later on this movie with the shrimps. Don't have any supplementations. Yeah, he only does the water changes, and this can be the answer how he prevents from developing of this problem. Because if he make 20% of his water in the changes every week, this is how he can put the micro and macro elements for the tank. On the other hand, if we look that he has a lot of those plants in his tank and he doesn't occur with any breeding problems or molting problems with his Taiwan bee shrimps, I'm not sure if the water changes would be enough to make this big effect. I'd like to say that I bought some of the plants from Cristopher just to see how well they will grow in my aquariums on the farm. In future, I will post a movie with those plants, and I will make another movies in some periods of time. So let's say month or 2 months, so that you can see the speed of the growth in my tanks. I also make some contacts in Indonesia because I want to import some of their plants to start adapting them to underwater parameters and start to growing them on my farm. I must say that this will be my first international import that I will make via plane, but the first order will be quite small, and if the plants will came to in a good conditions, I will make another and more orders. I hope, guys, that you enjoyed my movie, and that as usual my English wasn't so awful that I think so, because as I said, it's quite rusty for me. I don't use English as often as I used to. But I tried my best to give you some knowledge about Bucephalandras and about growing them, especially that I came across a guy that has a very huge amount of knowledge and very good effects, because everybody can say that they know everything, but let's say it simply. Look at their tanks and you will know the answer if their knowledge is correct or not. I hope that you enjoyed this movie. You can comment what you think about Bucephalandras. You can also comment if you came across those problems that I said, and what's your opinion. Okay, so I leave you with the rest of my movie, and I hope that everything will be good for you. See you in the next movie.